Everything is hard until it gets easy. This quote is one of my main motivators in difficult situations. In today's episode of my Rawcast, I'm giving you 3 tips on how you can learn mountain bike skills faster. I'm Roxy, welcome. So why is this called a Rawcast? That's because it's raw, and usually it's on the go. So I do not record this podcast in a studio. Instead, I take you on my creativity walks. Well, I'm in Spain at the Costa Blanca at the moment, where I live, and it's summer. So this cicada, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, these little insects that do really loud noises, they are so loud, and the sun is just burning right now relentlessly. So that's why I've decided to record today's episode inside. So you will hear less walking noises than you normally do. As I said, today I want to share 3 practical tips on how to accelerate any learning journey, but specifically your mountain bike skills evolution. Everything is hard until it gets easy. And that is true, because as soon as you're really good at something, it feels and it actually looks easy. Have you ever seen someone perform a bunny hop? Looks easy, right? And it's the case in all areas of life. So why should it be different with mountain biking? How many times have I gotten smart-ass comments on social media below one of my videos when I ride a super techie gnarly section and someone writes, "Dude, my grandma would ride that on a unicycle." I don't get these comments because that person's grandma is really a unicycle world champion or whatever, or because that spot is actually easy. It happens because it's my job to make things look easy, because everything looks easy when it's executed by someone who really knows how to do so. And exactly, this flow, the flow of movement is one of the main reasons why skills training is worthwhile for every biker. And I mean really for every biker. Every pro athlete, well, probably every successful pro athlete, no matter in which discipline, has a skills coach or an external advisor or coaches in general. So no matter whether it's tennis, golf, mountain biking, or BMX or whatever. Once movements are fluid, they run subconsciously. Subconsciously also means that you no longer need processing efforts, like you don't need to think about it to execute these movements. This also implies that you need much less energy to perform these movements, and it also implies that you yourself cannot optimize these movements without an external coach. But generally, this makes you faster and more energy and resource efficient, so the goal is to make these movements subconscious. So even though you're like, hey, I don't want to become a pro athlete, saving resources and power means you can ride longer, so you also have a similar goal. So I regularly hear from riders that you don't need skills training because, learning by doing is much more effective. But often these are also the same riders who say, crashing is part of the game. So I'm here to tell you, crashing regularly is not part of the game. Well, it doesn't need to be. If you've listened to one of my older episodes on whether crashing is part of the game, then you know it does not need to be. I've linked it below in the show notes, by the way. If you want to develop far beyond your current level, you must first be willing to admit to yourself that you don't know what you do not know. And from experience, it's a lot more than our ego likes to admit. Our ego does not know what it doesn't know, and it does not like to find out. However, if you are willing to find out what you don't know, and then if you're willing to fill in those gaps in your knowledge, then you'll not only crash less, but you'll be able to navigate difficult sections with a lot more confidence. Okay, so here are my 3 tips. Tip 1 is do not let your ego stop you. Have you ever noticed that people only refer to themselves as beginner riders for like a few rides, and then a few easy trails afterwards, they're like, poof, they're on advanced trails. And that everyone who has been riding for a few months already calls themselves advanced. Obviously, there are exceptions, but I see this a lot. I was coaching in a bike park during summer, and I have seen so many beginners attempt drops and jumps, and I have seen so many crashes. It seems to me that we just want everything to be fast, everything to be instant. But this evolution, to be honest, it scares me. When I started riding, I was an adult. I was about 23 years old, and I would have never thought that I'd be ready for airtime after about a year or two of riding. For me, it was clear these are advanced skills. They require solid fundamentals. They require a lot of time and dedicated practice. But nowadays, almost everyone wants to start off their skills training with airtime or by tackling super gnarly stuff. But there's a huge difference between surviving an intermediate trail or surviving a jump and actually mastering it in a controlled manner. As a passenger on their bike, everyone can ride a black trail and everyone can jump at least once. But as a pilot, not really. And shouldn't that be the goal? So that's actually tip 1. Do not let your ego decide which skills you should be practicing. Practice according to a methodical manner. And if you'd like to find out more about my skills pyramid and the order of skills I recommend to practice, then do check out the video I have linked below in the show notes. Okay, now let's get to tip 2. Tip 2 is acknowledge that nobody learns movements within a day. And I mean nobody, because bodies need time to develop muscles, coordination, everything. But the flood of easy-looking, spectacular skills on the internet, they often lead us to believe that we can learn easy, as in 1, 2, 3, learn to bunny hop, here we go. And the worldwide supply of one-day skills clinics further support this mindset. But the truth is, if you're a human, and if you don't have a history as a pro athlete, it's pretty impossible to learn impressive movements within a day. This is neurologically and anatomically simply impossible. You don't go to a gym and expect to build a huge biceps in a day, but people expect to learn how to jump in a day. Do you know a child who learned to ride or walk in a day? Have you met anyone who learned to play an instrument in a single day? Well, probably not. The bottom line is, our body and brain need time. They need structured repetition, and they need rest to strengthen muscles, to build coordination, and to rewire. However, in order for our muscles and brain to know how to rewire, we need to be practicing the right drills. We need to be practicing targeted exercises with a clear movement goal. So if you really want to learn how to track stand, for example, how to ride more technical downhills, or if you want to master skills like bunny hops or jumping, then be realistic in your goal setting. Allow your body and brain the time they really need. Also, you can accelerate your learning journey by booking a professional coach, obviously. Generally, I'd like to say, what will you get out of doing this? Well, the stamina you develop while practicing in a structured manner over weeks will help you a ton in many areas of your life, like in your job and in your personal life. And of course, you'll finally master those riding skills you want to rock at. So if you'd like to work with me on this, then do check the show notes as well, where you'll also get a free track stand course, by the way. Okay, so here is tip 3. It's bring courage. Did you know one of the main reasons why many people don't achieve their goals is that they are afraid of making mistakes? Many people who are afraid of making mistakes, they don't even start something because of this fear. After all, if you never try something, you can always say, hey, I would have succeeded if I had tried. Then these people don't need to admit that they messed up. But if you bring the courage to make mistakes and supplement this courage with strength, boy, you become unstoppable. If you have the courage to make mistakes and the strength to keep going, you literally become unstoppable. Even when things get tough, you will succeed if you bring this. It's just a matter of time. Consistency is always rewarded, especially when you begin to acknowledge that mistakes are not an undesired side effect, but actually they are an essential part of learning. Let me say that again. Errors are not an undesired side effect. They are an essential part of learning. The upside of mistakes is that your brain just learns much, much faster through mistakes than it does through success. It's just pure biology. It would be stupid if we had to burn ourselves on a hot stove 5 times before we realized that we'd better not touch it. But you can touch it 100 times without burning yourself, and still you haven't learned that you'll burn yourself when it's hot, right? You just need to touch it a single time. You need to make a mistake a single time, and you'll learn that. And that's how mistakes accelerate your learning. And once you start to see mistakes as an accelerator to your learning journey and an essential part of your practice sessions, and plus, if you have a professional coach at your side who creates a safe learning zone where mistakes have no negative consequences, that's when you can virtually biohack your success. By the way, if mistakes do have negative consequences, then you're in a performance zone, not in a learning zone. I've talked about this in one of my previous podcasts, and in a performance zone, your brain is not learning anything new. It's just ingraining the things you already know how to do. And that is precisely why learning by doing, i.e. just riding trails, will not make you an amazing rider with time just magically. Overall, I'd just like to say a healthy attitude towards mistakes will really positively influence you far beyond riding mountain bike. It will accelerate your learning path at everything. So working on this attitude and your mountain bike skills in general will allow you to save energy, which in turn will increase the fun factor. Okay, so here's a quick summary of the 3 tips of today. 1, don't let your ego stop you. Thinking you're already too good to learn is probably the number 1 growth jeopardizer, and allowing our ego to choose what to learn can really hurt. 2, embrace the process. No one learns complex movements in a day. Work on your skills in a structured manner and you will succeed. And tip number 3 was bring the courage to make mistakes and see mistakes as an essential part and as a catalyst versus avoiding them. I do hope you found this episode helpful. If you would like to support my ads-free podcast, you can do so by subscribing with a monthly subscription on Instagram or becoming a patron on Patreon. You will find both of these sites below in the show notes. Do give me a rating to allow others to find this podcast on wherever you are currently listening. I am wishing you a wonderful, wonderful day, evening or night, and I'm sending you much love. I'm Roxy. Goodbye. See you next time.